Ensure the longevity of your industrial heat transfer equipment with our comprehensive corrosion coupon analysis. Don't just send your corrosion coupons to any lab. Send your corrosion coupons to a lab that understands your water treatment needs. B Labs is run by water treaters for water treaters. At B Labs, every corrosion coupon report includes a picture of your corrosion coupon before and after cleaning, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. To find out more, go to scalinguph2o.com/B Labs and up your corrosion coupon game. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/BELABS. B Labs, corrosion coupon reports done right. Accelerate your success. Why go it alone when you can get further faster and have more fun doing it? The Rising Tide Mastermind offers a dynamic environment where you can grow professionally and personally while enjoying the journey. To find out more about the Rising Tide Mastermind, go to scalinguph2o.com/mastermind. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/mastermind. Find out if the Rising Tide Mastermind is right for you. Welcome to the Scaling Up H2O podcast, the podcast where we scale up on knowledge so we don't scale up our systems. I'm Trace Blackmore, the host of the Scaling Up H2O podcast. And nation, it's hard to believe, January is almost at an end. It just seems time flies by. It seems like we were in January of 24 just yesterday. Well, we said goodbye to 2024, and now we're saying goodbye to the first month in 2025. It just works that way. Nation, if you are like me, time just flies by. And if you are not taking care of making sure the most important things are getting done, that time will slip away. So I am a huge proponent of the book called The 12-Week Year. And we have an affiliate link for that. If you have not read it yet, it's scalinguph2o.com/12-week year. And you can get a copy of that. And it's one of my favorite books because it tells me that I don't have a year to do something in. It tells me that I have a quarter to get something done. And each and every quarter, I now treat like a year. And folks, since I've been adopting this simple mentality, I have been getting so much more done. I love this book because it teaches you how to plan. And let's face it, there's so many books out there that teach us how to plan, but very few teach us how to execute. And more importantly, how to execute when our execution isn't going according to plan. It teaches us how to realign that plan. It is one of the more simplistic planning books out there, and it is the most effective planning book and execution book out there that I can think of. So I'm going to use the fact that we're 1 month down in the first month of 2025 and the first month of the quarter, that if you are not using a system like this, I urge you to use a system. Now, maybe you're using a different system. And if that's working for you, that is fine. But I talk to so many people that listen to this podcast that tell me that they don't have any type of system. And that is not going to work for you. You are busy as an industrial water treater. You've got so many things going on. You need to make sure that you have a system that's working for you, that you are not working for it. Now, there are tons of them out there. I just happen to really appreciate the 12-week year. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/12-week year. I think you will enjoy that. And if you start it, let me know what you think. A lot of people will see me at conferences and they will let me know what they think. And so many people will tell me they never would have heard about this conference had it not been for the Scaling Up H2O podcast. So I absolutely love that. We want to make sure that we're keeping conferences to you. And then a lot of times I will hear, Trace, you didn't tell me about this conference that was right in my backyard. Well, folks, it's not a long podcast that we do each and every week. It's only about an hour. So we have to pick and choose what we're going to talk about. Normally, I choose 2 or 3 conferences to let the Scaling Up Nation know about. but there are dozens of conferences going on. So if you haven't been to our webpage, scalinguph2o.com, then you are missing out because there are so many conferences on there, so many training sessions on there, and we make it so easy for you to figure out where you want to go and put in your calendar. So go ahead and check this out. But here are a few that I want to make sure that you know about. Taking place in Long Beach, California, February 24th through 27th. Well, that's the Membrane Technology Conference, and that's put on by the American Waterworks Association. And this is all about the latest developments in membrane technology. So if this is something that you practice, you definitely want to look more into that. And how to do that, go to our events page. We're going to have all of that for you. Now, Nation, one of my favorite venues to attend is what I'm getting ready to tell you about now, and that's the Association of Water Technology's 2025 Technical Training Seminars. We do 2 of these each and every year, and the first one is going to take place February 25th through 28th. That's going to be in San Diego, California. Love San Diego. What a great town there. And then we're going to do it one more time, March 12th through 15th in Frisco, Texas. And Nation, I am so happy that I get to be one of the trainers at this event. I meet so many of you that listen to this podcast, and I get so many great ideas about the podcast by going to these trainings. And I just love teaching what it is that I do each and every day. And this was the first place that I learned to do this skill was at the Association of Water Technology's technical training. And that's where the idea of the podcast ultimately came from, because I love talking with you all so much. Twice a year was not enough. I needed to invent something that we could talk together each and every week. And how cool was it that last year, the Association of Water Technologies presented this podcast with the Innovation Award, meaning that this is a platform that is changing the industry for everybody. That was such a great honor. And another honor would be to see you at one of these technical trainings. Now, we're going to have all of this information for you so you can devour what's going to happen at these technical trainings by going to scalinguph2o.com/events. Scroll down to AWT 2025 Technical Training. We'll have all of that information for you. But Nation, I hope you attend that. That's one of my favorite things to attend. And I will definitely see you there if you are there. The last thing I'll mention is the American Chemical Society Spring 2025 event that's taking place in San Diego, California, March 23rd through 25th. And there are so many listeners of this podcast that are members of the American Chemical Society. You know, there is a secret handshake that they teach you if you are a member of the American Chemical Society. I am sworn to secrecy, so I cannot tell you what that is. But if you meet somebody that's in the American Chemical Society, they will know what that handshake is. And you'll probably learn that if you go to this conference. And we're going to have all of that information about that conference on scalinguph2o/events. Nation, an event that I had a blast at was the International Water Conference. Last year, I had the pleasure of being their keynote speaker, and I met so many great people at that conference, including our next guest. My lab partner today is Juan Meneses of Nalco Water. Juan, welcome to the Scaling Up H2O podcast.
Hi, Trace. Thank you for having me in your podcast.
We were trying to think. We're pretty sure we met each other last year when I had the honor of being the keynote speaker for the International Water Conference. We were introduced by a mutual friend, and now we get to see each other on the podcast.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you for the invite again.
So IWC was just recently. Were you able to go?
No, fortunately, there was some commitment with customers at the same week. And well, But I watch closely because my company have been a great presence this year, and I think that the guest speaker this year was someone from our company.
I'm sure he was much better than the last speaker last year.
No, it was great, Trace.
Juan, how long have you been involved in the International Water Conference?
Well, I think in the last 3 or 4 years. Unfortunately, I cannot come this year, but plan is to continue being involved.
It's one of my favorite conferences to attend. I had something else also planned. I wasn't able to go this year, but I love how specific the papers are. They do a great job with making sure that not only is the information accurate, but you get a second opinion on that. I just love the format of the papers. And I think we're going to be talking about a few that you did for IWC today.
Correct. Yeah, it's a great conference. I have the opportunity to be a discussion leader and also discusser. So it's a really challenge position because, you have to review that paper or work, but it's very professional. I like the methodology of the IWC, and that's the beauty of that conference.
We'll have information on our show notes page if any of our listeners want to find out more about the International Water Conference. But if you don't mind, I would love for the Scaling Up Nation to learn a bit more about Juan. What's the day in the life like?
Well, Trace, again, thank you for having me. I'm district manager of Nalco Water, a Nicolab company in the Midwest area. Currently, I'm managing downstream customers or downstream side of the oil and gas business, focusing on refineries. I started my journey almost 30 years ago in Venezuela. That's my home country. Right after college, I started my career as a materials engineer, working in a chemical plant or chemical complex at that time as a corrosion and materials engineer. And part of my job, and very frequently, was boiler inspection. So, as you know, boiler and steam system in general are critical components in any industrial facility. So at that time, I started to inspect boilers, fire side, water side, looking for any deterioration, corrosion in the water tubes, in the steam drum, mud drums. And so at that moment, I started to be involved in the water treatment. Any deviation I found usually was related to the boiler operation or water quality or water treatment. And so at that time, I understand the connection between us as a asset owner, because, at that time was like a customer, and a chemical vendor. That's my current role right now at Nalco.
So, as a former boiler inspector, I guess I got to pick a boiler. Let's say in a water tube boiler, what's one of the first places that you're going to find evidence that water treatment's not working?
Well, usually we go in the steam drums, and you actually see any type of corrosion or scale formation in the tubes that you can see easily when you got it. And also when you see a really good treated boiler, you immediately notice, very well passivated surface. And it's like you see in the books when you start to learning and study that. But yeah, I mean, just looking corrosion and deposition and scales in the tubes.
We had a recent detective H2O during Industrial Water Week on this. But a common problem is an inspector will go in, maybe they haven't seen the boiler before, and it looks scaled, but they passed it the previous year, and now it's in a cleanup cycle. It still looks scaled, but they were like, oh my gosh, this boiler looks horrible. We can't pass it. I know that probably has never happened to you, but what advice do you have for people listening as far as documenting, making sure they're writing things down so they can get their customer and the boiler abdicated properly?
Yeah, I mean, customers are paying a lot of attention to the boiler because, usually you have to keep those records updated for the states, and they have their own inspection group. But we, have a chemical vendor, always need to be there, need to be supported that activity. So my advice is, work with a customer and be at the right time, be at the right moment to provide, any support to the boiler inspector or any maintenance group that is involved in that maintenance activity.
Well, we're going to shift gears slightly. We're talking about the boiler. Now we're going to go over to the cooling tower, and specifically a paper you're responsible for. Innovation synergies enable reliable wastewater reuse in cooling towers at a $4 million total reduction of operation costs. That's pretty impressive. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And if I understand right, you were doing that with putting sewage in cooling towers.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's the alternative make of water that the customer decide to use.
So, well, that is something. That's the water that nobody thinks they can use. You guys figured out how to use it and how to save $4 million in total operation cost. So let me ask, did the customer come to you and say, we need to do a cost reduction? Throw us some ideas. What do you have? How'd you come up with this?
Yeah, sure. So this is a case in Latin America refinery that they aggressively targeting reduced total cost of operation in response at that time to a global industry downturn. So they were seeking at the same time reduce the water footprint in the water scarce region that they were operating. So the customer or the company identify using treated sewage effluent as a makeup, for the cooling water system as alternative to achieve those goals that they were facing.
Well, I can only imagine that when that idea was posed, you're thinking, well, how are we going to do that? Because it's going to change depending on what's happening during the day, all the things that are going through. So how do you even begin to figure out all the things you're going to need to account for to even make the program start to be successful?
Yeah, that was a big challenge. First, water quality. We need to understand what we are dealing with. Usually, a treated CH effluent quality is very variable. There is a lot of variation during the day. And in this case, the customer wanted to use municipal wastewater. So usually high organic content, ammonia, phosphate. So that start to, raise some questions about, well, what could be the impact if we are going to use that type of water? So we try to understand, what is the component of the make of water and all the potential problems that could cause, biofouling, for example. So microorganisms growth and deposition can happen in the systems and reduce efficiency, reduce heat transfer. Corrosion, we're talking about high ammonia content and chlorides and another corrosive substance can accelerate corrosion in the corrosion mechanism and failures. Scale, dissolved oxygens cause a scale building affecting operation and heat transfer as well. And well, this is not an easy makeup to treat it. So you need to be very aware of the chemicals that you are not need to use and manage that because usually you need to use a lot of chemistries, a lot of chemical, and that could, also impact the cost of operation of the cooling tower.
How did you determine that you knew what the exact sample was that you were working with? Because I'm sure it fluctuated throughout the day, throughout the days of the week. How did you get a good sample so you could actually start that?
Well, that was a challenge. I mean, as you said, it will depend also seasonal. So, of course, we have a database that start building to understand at least highs and lows of critical component. So we know, for example, that water have a high organic content and also high bacterial growth. But at the end, specific for this project, when we were discussing with the customer, so one of the key component was automation. So we need to put some kind of automation to try to capture, any deviation in the makeup water or anything that could happen in the system. So that's why we can go into and adjust anything in the water treatment to address that type of variation.
So once you started the actual process, we're going to put this water into the cooling tower. Tell us about that and what you were doing to make sure that nothing catastrophic happened.
Well, as I mentioned, high organic content, that's critical because it can react with chlorine gas. That's a biocide that they were using there. And that can accelerate, corrosion of the system. At the same time, bacterial count can lead biodeposition and also microbiologic influence corrosion. So that also present a challenge because both components, high organic content and high bacterial count, can be a challenge compound because can create like a cycle. Bacteria biofilms can trap organic matters and preparing that microbial growth and corrosion. So definitely we need to understand customer goals and try to address as much as we can those goals. For sure, one of the driver was reduce cost, and they want at the same time ensure equipment reliability, so reduce downtime. At the same time, they wanted to reduce water footprint, so water conservation was a big driver for them. They want to reduce fresh water and use that alternative source of water from the municipal wastewater. And so, the approach was understand, the quality of the water, the challenge that they can bring to the system, work with our consultants and experts in that matter to, put together a good advanced cooling water treatment to address that type of condition. And definitely, real-time monitoring or online monitoring was a key just to, try to keep, efficiency and compliance on the KPIs that we need to measure.
What were some of the things that you were measuring to make sure that efficiency didn't drop off?
Water chemistry analysis, understand, all the variation in the makeup water, pH, conductivity, all the components, ammonia, alkalinity, all this kind of stuff, and try to address that type of fluctuation. So basically, online monitoring can allow us to, put some sensors in the cooling tower so we can, measure pH, conductivity, and other critical parameters or variables in important, not only in the makeup water, also in the supplied and the return water. So we have a complete picture what's going on in any specific time. Also, in the chemical treatment side, we try to use appropriate scale inhibitor, corrosion inhibitor, a pH control. Most of them automated. So that was a critical because we can adjust based on the demand. And so the choice of the chemical, should be based on that specific type of water and system requirement. And also, blowdown was a key component here. Automated the blowdown helped us to maintain water quality and reduce the risk of scaling corrosion at any time.
Normally, when it comes to saving costs, the customer says we always need to increase our concentration ratio. I'm sure it was no different here, but now you have all these solids that are coming in with this effluent treated water because I'm sure they asked for it. How did you balance those two things, the excess solids and them wanting to get higher cycles?
Yeah, in this case, trace, one of the thing that we need to fix first was the use of chlorine gas that they were using. So chlorine gas is a very effective biocide, but they have some risk in management and also create some challenge with pH and also insisting that they are, like a refinery, have a lot of hydrocarbon contamination. So one of the things that we initially did was change the biocide strategy and put a chlorine dioxide generator. So that type of technology could be managed better any hydrocarbon leak because they don't react with hydrocarbon. And it's a really, really well-known biocide, broad spectrum, so can manage a lot of bacteria and doesn't affect by pH. So once we could solve that first initial problem, changing the biocide strategy and eliminate, that type of issue with corrosion that chlorine gas always has in the cooling tower systems. So then we focus on the scale side. So now we solved that. We were able to go a little up in cycles and try to understand, the challenge of the scales potential and use, advanced, very robust polymer or dispersants type of chemistry to manage that. So it was like a two-step. First, we manage microbiome, and change that strategy. And then we focus on cycles of concentration to increase and reduce water.
Is that always the course of action that you follow, where you always take care of the microbial issue first and then you move on from there?
Well, it's depend of the case. Specific for that case, and we are dealing with refineries, and we know some history of the hydrocarbon leak. So we started to address that issue first, right? And but not always is the same approach. It's depend. What type of challenge the customer is facing too.
You talked about automation. What were some of the things that you brought on as automation to make sure you were getting the best data?
Yeah, real time monitoring or online monitoring. That the way that you name it. It's a matter so about immediate data collection. So online monitoring system continuous collect data on water quality, such pH, conductivity, chemical concentration. So that allow for us have immediate detection of any deviation from the optimal condition, of course, and able to quick corrective action and prevent chemical, overdosage or underdosage in this case. Also, we are dealing with some contaminated system. Sensors are also critical part. Sensors, provide precise information and reduce the guesswork of any manual testing, but should be at the same time some kind of technology robust that don't lose any calibration frequently because also could be a headache. So that also is important part. And well, automation systems adjust chemical dosage based on that real-time data. Also that also ensure consistent and optimal chemical usage. So I think that was a critical part of this project.
Any issues with the sensors fouling?
Well, yeah, always is a challenge, pH. But the market and the company have been put a lot of attention of this issue, and over the time have created very robust technology. Sometimes depend of the system. In this case, was not necessary, but you also could have like a mini cleaning place system that frequently runs some acid or any cleaning solution to keep the prof function very well. But in this case, was not necessary. But we were relying on good type of sensors that address that type of dirty condition.
As the data was coming in, you were making sure that you weren't creating any harm to the system, obviously, but you're also trying to figure out how to improve the system. It's not just you, it was the entire team. How did you ensure that that was being communicated and decisions were being made properly?
That's a important question. So early detection monitoring, it's important. So in this case, any deviation, we have some tools to detect hydrocarbon leak like POC or P, that type of technology and tools. So you need to work with the customer, of course, to have a clear type of communication so you can, provide them some data, provide them some information, and based on that, they can take action. So any proactive measure or detection that we have connected to the stakeholders in the customer is very important because the communication can fluid very rapidly and very proactive. So communication is important, and also at the same time have the right people involved. Usually utilities, it's one of the area of the refineries that always some customers don't pay too much attention because they produce money in other with other things. But when the customer understand the relationship between or the impact that the water or steam or wastewater have in their operation, they could understand, well, we need to invest, we need to take care of our utility system because it's a way that we can produce more oil, more throughput.
With a plant this size, there's always somebody that's monitoring all of the discharge. So I'm sure the cooling tower discharge was being monitored. What were some of the things that they were looking for, and how did you ensure that they stayed within those parameters?
Yeah, again, we base a lot of things in the online monitoring. So we always have sending data to them, at least the main KPIs that are important for them after they discharge, because they discharge the effluents or the blowdown go to the municipal again. So of course they have a lot of KPIs that environmentals that need to be taken care. And well, we provide them, the main important parameters that they needed to measure, pH, conductivity, metals in some cases that is important for them. That was not part of the online monitoring, what's taking some lab work on that. But well, they have a really robust, monitoring and testing plan to, meet that specification to go back to the municipal.
Juan, what were some of the sustainability and environmental benefits of a program like this?
Well, again, these customers specifically have goals to reduce freshwater and water footprint. And so they found this alternative water to be, very important to meet that goal. So also one of the challenges that they will be facing was, a lot of maintenance costs, corrosion, leaks. So they knew that moving to that type of water could, stress more the system. So that's why, a holistic approach was put in place to understand, okay, what are the stresses that are causing that type of failure? So that's why we manage first, okay, we identify that chlorine gas or the biocide strategies was one of the important things. And then, of course, that allows us to increase cycles, reduce water, and that combination between, a better robust water treatment that reduce corrosion rate, reduce leaks, reduce downtime. That was a huge part of the TCO that we provide to the customer. And the other side, increasing cycles and reduce fresh water and also reduce the blowdown also have good impact in the financial of the project. So that TCO was a compound between more efficiency, more reliability in their operation, and at the same time, water savings.
So I'm sure they were pleased that you reduced the total operational cost by $4 million. What did they say when you say, "Hey, we did it. This is what we've achieved"?
No, I mean, it was a great achievement. They wants to be a good partner in the community. So definitely they use this case as well for internal and external, advertise that they are doing the right thing for the community, for the environment, and of course, was a great success for them. And we were glad that we're part of that effort. So they put us the challenge, and again, good communication, understand the roles between the customer and the vendor, and have a common goal was a key in this project.
Whenever you do a case study, you always have hindsight. Oh, if I only knew this, I would do something differently. I'm curious, what would you do differently knowing what you know now?
In this project, I think maybe we should get a better baseline. I think you asked me that question at the beginning, but you don't always have enough times or to meet customer goals and what they wanted to achieve. So I think if we were study a little more or have a better baseline, maybe we could avoid some headaches at the initial start of the project. Was a big challenge. I mean, it was a big change for them, a big change for us, moving from fresh water to wastewater, municipal, or sewage water. So maybe we would like to have a better baseline to address those initial challenge.
Well, I'll be sure to put your paper on our show notes page so people can see that. Anything else you want them to know before we move on to the lightning round questions?
No, no. I mean, again, that's a big challenge that I always, customer put us in front. So again, have a clear goal, communication, have the right stakeholders in place, clear roles and responsibilities. It's really, really important to have successful in this type of project that put a lot of challenge in the technical side and also in the way that they are operating traditional that system. So communication, responsibility, have the right people in place, from our company and from their company, our experts and also their experts as well.
All right, Juan. Well, as I mentioned, I'll have your paper on our show notes page. And Nation, it was a great paper. I would recommend that everybody download that and read that. We'll have that on today's show notes. But Juan, I've got a few lightning round questions for you. So buckle up. Here they come. The point values are worth quite a bit, so it's anybody's game. My first question is, if you could go back in time and talk to your former self on your very first day as a water professional, what advice would you give yourself?
Good question. I think be curious, understand the customer process, so how they make money and how the water impact their operation. Maybe in my early career, I was focused mainly in the technology side, but sometimes missed, the value that we can bring to our customers. So when you balance that and create good stories to implement, so I think that's the good way to, or maybe an advice that I will do it to myself in the past. So of course, now there is more awareness of sustainability than ever, and companies have adopted this path. So making, I think, our work as a water professional more important. And I don't know if easier or not, but at least more important.
What are the last few books that you've read?
Well, I'm more a podcast person, honestly.
I'll take podcasts.
Yeah. So I listen a lot of Freakonomics radio. I don't know if you heard about it, but
I'm familiar, yeah.
yeah, he's a, wonderful, wonderful host. I think it's Stephen Dopner, if I remember well. I mean, he have a variety of topics, very, very well documented and fact checked, good information. So it's part of my daily routine. Well, they put episodes every week. And another one is Today Explain. It's a daily podcast, maybe short, 15, 20 minutes, but it gives you a good perspective of hot topics that happen in the US or in the world. So if you want to be informed and with a good perspective, I recommend that.
And of course, your favorite podcast is Scaling Up H2O, right?
Of course.
Good answer. You're doing very well with the point value. All right, question number 3. When Hollywood makes a movie about your life, who do you want playing Juan?
That's a good question. Maybe Robin Williams. I saw him like a kind and humble person, an actor, and always tried to deflect the attention away from him. So I like that style. So I try to mimic that type of personality.
My last question is, you now have the ability to talk to anybody throughout history. Who to be with and why?
Currently I like a lot of space things that it's happening. So I think one person that I would love to meet is Neil Armstrong, the first person that walked in the moon. I mean, understand his preparation and know from firsthand that experience he lived, at the moon and all that journey. So I would love to have that first time experience with him.
He's one of my heroes as well. I remember I heard an interview, I might have read it, and he was talking about, all the force that was on his body as they were making their way out of Earth's gravity, and then all of a sudden just weightless. All of that energy, all that effort just went away, and it was like, we did it, and everything floated around. It was, he said it a lot better than I just said it, but I can't imagine that experience. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Juan, thank you for sharing your experience around your paper and coming up on the Scaling Up H2O podcast.
No, thank you for having me again, and all the best, Trace. Thank you.
Nation, I absolutely love talking with people that have completed case studies. Whether they're successful or they're not, there's always something to learn at the other end. And of course, Juan had a very successful case study. Imagine telling your customer you just saved them $4 million. And of course, he did that by taking the effluent sewer from the municipality and putting that into the cooling tower And so many times that is not able to happen for all the things that he mentioned during the interview, but they figured out a way to make it happen, and it saved their customer $4 million in operating costs. I think that is just fantastic. Not to mention, they did a bunch of things that actually helped the infrastructure that they were working with and probably saved on water further on down the line. That's why I love this industry. We can't do anything independent. Everything is interconnected when we talk about water. So if we make some incredible discovery, invention, change on this end, it is going to, pun intended, ripple effect all the way down to all other consumers and everybody that the water touches. That's why I think we are in the best industry out there. Water's just an amazing substance to begin with. And then when we think about how important water is, there's nothing more important than water. And that's what our job is, to not only protect it, but to make sure that we are utilizing it in the best way possible. So when I saw this case study, I knew I wanted to bring Juan on the program. And I will let the Scaling Up Nation know that we were actually going to talk about another case study that he did, but we did not have time. So stay tuned. Juan said he would love to come and chat with us again on another technology that he was trialing, and we will bring that to you shortly. So we're always trying to find the next guest to talk to. So if you or somebody you know would like to be on this podcast, go to scalinguph2o.com and go over to our show ideas page. Put whatever your idea is. Maybe it's a guest, maybe it's an idea, maybe it's even a complaint. Sometimes we get complaints. Somebody doesn't like something that I said, and we get to improve it through that. So whatever it is, you let me know, and I will make sure that it goes in how we operate this podcast. Nation, it's amazing that we are well over 400 episodes and we still have plenty of ideas. That's because of everybody out there in the Scaling Up Nation. Not only are you listening to the podcast, you're sharing this podcast, and you are letting me know what you want the next episode to sound like. So thank you for everybody that has helped us with that. And if you've already helped us once, don't think you're off the hook. We need your repeated help. So if you got another idea, let us know what that is. And somebody that always has ideas is our friend James McDonald. And here's a brand new What Do You Know?
Hello and welcome to What Do You Know? The game show where we find out what do you know about industrial water treatment, drop by drop. So pump up your brain, take out that test kit of knowledge, and prepare to answer this week's question on What Do You Know? Today's question is, what do you call sections in a water system with low or no flow due to system design and or operation? Dead legs. Don't let unwanted microbiological activity ruin your day by hiding out in dead legs. I'm James McDonald, and thanks for playing along with us. Stay tuned for next week's episode of What Do You Know?
Well, thank you, James, and thank you, Scaling Up Nation. Of course, we'll have a brand new episode for you next week. In the meantime, find a conference that you want to attend and consider maybe presenting a paper here. We've had so many shows on this podcast where we talk to people that have presented papers, and we've even had programs that they tell you how to present papers. So all of that information is on scalinguph2o.com. You can do a content search there. You can find so much on how to write papers and see how other people have written their papers to help you out. So maybe this is your year to present a paper at the next conference you attend. I sure hope you decide to do that, and I sure hope I'm in the audience. Have a great week, folks. There's no doubt about it. Taking the Certified Water Technologist examination is one of the most challenging tasks you'll do in your water treatment career. But I'm here to help you with the first step. And that first step is my free gift to you, and that is a free CWT prep course. That's right. If you go to scalinguph2o.com/CWT prep, you'll get a portion of the paid course where you can see the type of materials that you'll be working with if you decide to sign up for the full course. Again, this is my free gift to you to get you on the journey to getting your Certified Water Technologist designation. Go to scalinguph2o.com/CWT prep today.